Hey guys, how you doing today? I just did a video and then I lost it. I can like literally hit one button, and if I just hit the wrong button, it just deletes the whole video. So I'm just gonna do a second video. If this is a little frustrating, now you know why. I had a pretty decent day today. Things were okay. Pretty tired, but beautiful day. Can't decide whether or not it wants to be hot or cold. Everything's up, everything's down. Not much going on in the news cycle, right? Not much happening in the news cycle, so not really that much to talk about. We're all waiting for that throne speech, right? And I mean, we can hit all the same notes, right? Like the media is not actually reporting on anything because the media exists to disinform the populace, to misinform the populace. It exists, in my view, now our media exists exclusively to just groom the populace into these narratives, right? So the most heartbreaking one is what's going on with the Toronto Star. The Toronto Star used to be like a reliable newspaper. You could expect them to, even if they were to have someone with a right-wing perspective, they were an educated person with a fact-based approach and opinions that were rooted in reality. And because they were owned by, it was like a council, it was like a group of wealthy people, sure, like, but, you know, on the lower tier of wealth, right? Millionaires, not even multimillionaires, really, just sort of, you know, wealthy to do-ish people. And a fair amount of them, like 12 of them, who own this paper collectively. And it seemed as though they did want to do journalism, that they were like, oh, we should actually report on things as we see them. And if we have editorials, we expect them to be largely fact-based and real. But that's shifted fairly quickly, because they sold this paper to a couple of conservatives who are like Doug Ford donors, right? Like they're conservatives. And the grooming now is that's coming out of the Toronto Star, it is heartbreaking to watch them. They haven't yet become as bad as the National Post is, which basically just has become a way to get billionaire-funded Fraser Institute, like all these hack organizations that are designed to lie to you about how anything actually works. The National Post exists almost exclusively to just filter that misinformation and those lies into the populace. The Toronto Star is not there yet, but they definitely, like, they're looking at a guy like Doug Ford, and they're like, look at how Doug Ford, throughout this, he's grown so much as a leader. He's such a more calm and thoughtful person these days. It's total bullshit. Doug Ford's a sociopath, right? This guy fairly recently said that people with disabilities should go to work, right? Like, shut the fuck up, Doug Ford, you fucking nightmare sociopath. And now the fact that he's got these conservative backers who own the Toronto Star backing him, right? Like, and are attempting to groom the populace to accept that this lie, this like blatant and obvious lie that Doug Ford is, oh, he's such a different guy and all this kind of stuff. You know what Doug Ford does? Doug Ford stands in front of a podium, they give him a card, he reads from the card with his stupid looking puppy dog eyes. That's what he does. That's all he does. He's just an idiot who's reading from a card because he wants to be the head, like he wants to feel like he's the head honcho. But like when the COVID crisis hit, he realized that he was in way over his head, and he just deferred to people who knew more than him, which generally I'm like, oh man, I wish he would do that for everything, right? Because then he would stop being a conservative. Because like his first year in office, the cuts that he performed were detrimental. It was an assault on the working class. It was an assault on the poor. It was an assault on people with disabilities, right? And we shouldn't let people forget that the COVID crisis came through and suddenly we're supposed to all believe that Doug Ford is this great leader when all he did was sit down, shut up, and let the experts do the work. All he does is read cue cards. He doesn't do anything. He's an idiot. And come the next election, we should really let him know that. But of course, I mean, as I always say, right, on this channel, it all comes down to how gullible we are, right? But unfortunately now our media has been completely taken over. So there is no such thing as actual debate, right? Because there's no actual issues that are being brought up. There's no actual conversation that's actually happening in these corporate news media outlets. The debates are happening in forums, like the debates are happening in the internet. The debates are happening. The debates are happening in coffee shops, right? And if people are wise and they've got a brain in their head, they don't bother with these newspapers, right? There are people I work with who are just like, you start talking to them. There are people I know and who I work with and who all this kind of stuff. You start talking about newspapers and they just start rolling their eyes. And I hope that's true across the country. I hope that if anybody brings up the National Post or the Toronto Star or the Globe and Mail, people are just like, oh yeah, okay, those guys, right? Because that's all it is. It's just the billionaires want to have their say. And so here's an example of a subject that you will never see read. You'll never see a debate about it in any newspaper, which is the fact that we live the vast majority of our lives in totalitarian dictatorships. Businesses, right? Every day, most people wake up, go to a totalitarian dictatorship, spend the vast majority of their time in a totalitarian dictatorship, where they don't have a say about what happens, where they don't, where their opinion isn't heard, where they have to just walk in lockstep and bootstrap away, right? In order to enrich people they've never met, who couldn't find the place where this business is on a map, because the only reason they have any sway is because they're rich, right? That they were born rich, and that they live in sort of this little bubble where they don't do any work, they don't provide anything of value, and yet they get to take the vast majority of the productivity, right? And imagine if you even stated that, right? Can you imagine opening up the Globe and Mail and actually seeing anybody even stating that, let alone having a position on it, right? Can you imagine anybody in the Toronto Star or the National Post or any of the Suns, right? Can you imagine any of them standing up and being like, oh, hey, have you guys noticed that these are totalitarian dictatorships? No, you can't actually state a fact as a fact. You can't actually look at what's in front of you and be obvious like that, let alone actually have a position. Like, and I've stated my position on this several times. The capitalist class is completely worthless. The shares should be transferred to the workers. The workers should be the shareholders. The workers should be the final decision makers within the business, because then the enterprise becomes democratic. Richard Wolff has a really wonderful phrase that he uses, which is democratize the enterprise. His idea is worker co-ops, right? Which, absolutely. But I think that we can achieve a more seamless transition with a share buy. Because what you do, right, is you just, every time a share comes up for sale, the workers are given the right of first refusal. And you have like a little organization that's set up within the business itself who's responsible for managing the purchase of these shares. And the workers then own the shares, and then become like the primary owners of the business. And that's just how it should go. And it could be done steadily. It doesn't need to be done in this like big sweep, right? And that way it's done peacefully as well, which I'm a big fan of, right? I don't necessarily like I will not stand up and speak against a revolution. I will absolutely allow the revolutionaries to be revolutionaries, and I will argue in favor of the revolutionaries without a doubt. And I won't even critique them. I will simply allow them to be the revolutionaries that they are, because that is where the society has taken them. Because I'll always say it, it's within the hands of the powerful to prevent revolution, and not through violent means. How you prevent revolution is by giving in to the demands of the revolutionaries. That if the revolutionaries stand up and say, we want universal health care, then you pass universal health care. If the revolutionaries stand up and say, we want a basic income, then you pass a basic income. And if you don't do that, and you plunge your society into the United States, which is a failed state, then you should expect people to fight back. And if your response to that is, how dare they fight back? Well, you might be a fascist. Simple as that. And so I would prefer to not have to take up arms and overthrow the state through violent means. I would prefer that power be transferred peacefully through the mechanisms that we have in place to make these decisions. And these mechanisms are about to be tested, in my view. The throne speech is a very important moment for Canada and for Canadians. And it really will be the moment to see whether or not our democratic structure is actually working on behalf of the populace or not. And my view is very simple. Anything short of a basic income is just bullshit. It's just pandering. It's just nonsense. Anything less than a basic income will cost twice as much and be half as effective. And it's just going to end up being done to pretend as though the Liberals actually give a shit, when in reality they're just doing the absolute bare minimum they can while subserviating themselves to corporate power. And so, hey, yeah, write your representative now, right? I really encourage that. Find who your representative is. Write a letter to Jagmeet Singh. Write a letter to Chrystia Freeland. Write a letter to Justin Trudeau. Let these guys know anything short of a basic income is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And that's my view, and I hope it's the view of everybody in Canada, right? Because we live in this society that's steadily sliding, or has slid. I shouldn't say steadily, is sliding. It has slid desperately in favor of the totalitarian dictatorships, the businesses. And the businesses, of course, don't want there to be solutions that come out of government, because solutions that exist and come out of government take power away from the totalitarian dictators, right? Why would they want to lose power so that people can have food and shelter, right? That's their primary form of leverage against the populace, is that food and shelter is withheld in exchange for us selling ourselves into a billionaire-dominated market. Like, that's their primary leverage against us. And if the government was to suddenly stand up and say, oh, wait a minute, we can just feed and clothe everybody. We can just provide food and provide shelter, and that's all taken care of. Tickety-boo. Like, the corporations and these totalitarian dictatorships are just going to go, are going to be against that, because they require people to be desperate in order to work for these dictatorships and the dictators. I had a point and it just flittered away. Don't you hate it when that happens? When you've got something that you want to continue saying, but then you completely forget? Right. And this is a conversation. Like, what I am saying right now will never be published in the Toronto Star. It will never be published in the National Post. It will never be published in the Globe and Mail. It won't be talked about on television. None of these points, right? Because they are talking points that run so counter to the to sort of the fascist narrative that we're supposed to just be eating up these days. You'll just never see it in our media, ever. And my hope is that because our media is completely failing and is completely complicit in the corporate coup d'etat that we're all experiencing, and because our media is refusing to actually attempt to create, like, we've all seen the articles that are talking about like a basic income, or how government spending is bad and all this kind of stuff, but like, where are the articles that are talking about like, oh, well, no, if we have like a basic income and it's actually quite good? I've seen like neutral-esque articles that talk about a basic income, but where are the articles that are being published on the front page of the Globe and Mail that are saying, no, a basic income is crucial, we should absolutely do a basic income, here's how it works, here's how we're going to do it, right? I just don't see it. And if I do see it, it's just like a little flick. It's just like a little like flicker, like just enough so that the corporate owners can just go, oh yeah, see, there it is. There's your fair and balanced TM. There it is, right there, right? Like we had an article on page 553, underneath the car advertisements, that was someone saying that they like the basic income, right? And then they'll publish like 5 front page, like, deficit spending out of the world. Oh my goodness. Oh, the world is exploding. And so my hope is that this channel will grow and will begin to seriously challenge these like overt fascist narratives that are coming up. Like, I read an article the other day. It was Trudeau veers sharply to the left, and I'm like, oh yeah, so he veers sharply to the left, so now he's just right of center, right? That's how far to the right we've gone, and we just believe that fascism is normal now. We just believe, like, we look at fascism, we look at what is obviously like the merger of the corporate state and the government, which is the Conservative Party, right? That's their whole MO. And we just go like, oh yeah, that's normal. Huh, that's cool and normal. That's how everything is. And it's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, that's terrifying. It's terrifying to believe that the government should be taken over by totalitarian dictators, and that our taxes and our productivity and our labor and our lives should be funneled directly into propping up totalitarian dictatorships. What the fuck are you even talking about? And it just seems like people are like, oh, okay, that's just what it is. Okay, okay. Fucking what? No, like, these places need to, like, they need to transfer into the hands of the workers, or they need to collapse. It's one of those things. People say to me, John, if you do that, you'll destroy the economy. And I'm like, good. I would like to destroy the totalitarian dictators that are attempting to destroy us and our civil society. I would absolutely love to destroy a society that is attempting to destroy us. For sure. Yeah, kill the economy. Anyway, I'm out of time. Hopefully I don't delete this video. Oh my god. Like, share, subscribe. If you're watching this and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, if only to make my heart warm. Just make me go like, yeah, it makes me feel good. Trying to get to 100. We can do it. I believe in me. I believe in us. I believe in you. Go have a smoke. Go have a drink. Ask that girl out. Ask that guy out. Go meet your neighbors. Go meet your neighbors. Make something for your neighbors. Because when the crises happen, your neighbors are the people who you're going to have to rely on. And if you don't know who they are, then you're going to be isolated from one another, and the fascists will be able to do what they want. But if you know your neighbors and you stand in solidarity with them, then you're going to be strong. All right? Good luck.